I put extra glamour on my face. Hey! Hi! It's me, Wilma Fingerdoo, with the Fingerdoo review of RuPaul's Drag Race Down Under Season 1, Episode 7. We are 1 week away from the finale, and before we get started, well, I need to thank some people, I'm just going to say. First of all, I want to send a big old shout out to Wicked Wanda out in Anaheim. How are you, Wanda? I hope you're doing well, doll. Your delicious son, Todd, on YouTube said that you get a giggle out of saying my name. I hope that's not the only thing that gives you a giggle these days, Wanda. Seriously. But if you're as wicked as everyone says, I'm sure you giggle more than most people think. I hope that you're well and that Todd isn't giving you too much of a hard time, Wanda. And if he does, you let me know. I'm so serious. I also want to send a shout out to this week's Redbubble models. First up, Magenta Fox was recently on Drag Race TV LA edition about Drag Race Down Under, and he was rocking the Lar de Souza Jorge Drink Me shirt and looking foxy. I'm just saying. Thanks, Magenta Fox. Mwah. Also, James Montgomery sent me some lovely shots of his Wilma Pride mug. Drink responsibly, James. I'm just saying. Also, Paul Snoding, I hope I said that right, so it might be Snotting. Paul Snotting is rocking his Wilma Pride shirt across the pond in Britain. And, well, speaking of Britain, the eternally youthful Stefan is proudly modeling his new autumnal Wilma notebook. I hope you fill that book up with some juicy tidbits, Stefan, that's all I'm saying. I also want to remind you that proceeds from the sales of my Lar de Souza design of Wilma Pride for the month of June will be donated to Rainbow Railroad, a fabulous charity that helps members of our LGBTQIA+ family escape hateful countries that still criminalize homosexuality and sexual diversity in all its glorious forms. For more information on Rainbow Railroad and the Wilma merch that I have available on my Redbubble page, please click on the links down below in the description box. And to all of you who've already bought a Wilma Pride product on behalf of Rainbow Railroad, I thank you. And to those of you who are still waiting for your item to be delivered, don't forget to post a pic on Twitter or Instagram of you fabulously modeling whatever it was you got, and make sure you tag me in it. I just would like to say, so far we've raised $106 for Rainbow Railroad, and I couldn't thank you enough. Now, Jorge, drink me! Ooh, what is this in a blue glass? Where are you hiding these? This is lovely. Fresca and vodka. We seem to have a lot of vodka this week, and I'm okay with that. I'm just saying. Okay. We started this week off by saying goodbye to the hugely wonderful Maxi Shield, bless her big bouncing boobs. While Scarlett cleaned the mirror, Elektra couldn't help but comment on how she thought Scarlett was about to be sent home. That was until Scarlett did her splits. Here's to Elektra for throwing Scarlett's splits up in her face. That must have felt good, I'm serious. And it didn't stop there. Karen told Scarlett she was glad to have her still in the race, so she could see what corset she would be wearing next. Seriously. Of course, Keita needed to be congratulated on her first win of the season, but she didn't let that stop her from saying that you can't win RuPaul's Drag Race without winning a challenge along the way. Art Simone! Which, although not entirely true, I think the accurate statement is you can't win RuPaul's Drag Race if you were already sent home once. Regardless of who deserves to be where and why, it didn't stop the queens from celebrating making it to top 5, or, as Karen pointed out, top 4 plus art. I love that. The next day in the workroom, Keita admitted that on the first day of the race, after meeting the other queens, she'd written down Karen's, Scarlett, and Art's names as being in the top with her. Sorry, not sorry to Elektra, and let's just say it, Anita. Just once I want production to have everyone write down who they think will be in the top 4 on day 1 and then whip those out on the second to last episode. Liza Minnelli is what I'm saying. Elektra didn't care. She was just thrilled that Ru thought there was something in her that said she had a chance of winning in the first place, and she was going to prove that she can. It's good to have a hobby. Thankfully, Ru's video message kept the queens from throwing any more shade at each other. This week's message was all about talent and gag reflexes, but I wasn't clear on whether one was dependent on the other. As the queens tried guessing what it all meant, there was Ru reminding the queens that next week they'd be crowning Down Under's first drag superstar. But before she could do that, she'd have to get to know what their talent was. She'd already more or less become acquainted with their charisma, uniqueness, and nerve after all. And what better way to get to know someone's talent than with a talent extravaganza? The queens were thrilled. Because Kita had won last week's challenge, she got the pleasure of creating the show's running order. Right away, Scarlett tried to manipulate Kita by saying what a challenge it was going to be for her to create the show's highs and lows with the running order. Like Karen, as the owner of a cabaret bar, has no idea how to do that. But Karen wasn't fooled. She saw through Scarlett's thinly veiled manipulation and pointed out that Kita could also sabo the queens and put herself in the best spot. Something Kita obviously liked the sounds of. I thought Scarlett was an idiot for saying out loud that she wanted to go last. She already won 2 challenges. If there's one thing I don't think any of the queens want to do, least of all Kita, is give Scarlett a free pass to the finale. So then the queens got down to working on their talent. Kita was obviously going to do a little prestidigitation. Lord knows what Art had planned, but it involved squats and bellowing, what I'm sure she usually calls date night. Elektra shared with Karen that she was going to dance it out, and she wasn't talking about the splits either. From what I could gather, it sounded to me like she was going to do some modern dance storytelling, which I worried might come off as a little too highbrow, which is never good where drag is concerned. I thought Karen made a good point by asking Elektra if it was drag. Clearly Elektra wasn't sure. It was obvious by the big pole in the room that Scarlett was going to dance on it. Otherwise, it wouldn't be considered a talent as much as a skill. You heard me. But that didn't stop Karen from Finance from taking a spin on it. Okay, I'm just going to say it. I'm surprised it didn't bend. I'm just surprised. In true Scarlett form, she tried to tell us that she hasn't seen a drag queen do pole before. Well, obvious innuendo notwithstanding, is she high? Did we all not just see Miss Shea Coulee, the winner of All Stars 5, do exactly the same thing on episode 1 of that series? Maybe Scarlett would have remembered it more if Shea had done it in whiteface. In an attempt to shake things up, Elektra told Kita that she wanted to go last in the lineup, and all I could say is she had better be pretty confident about her performance to want to close the show, because if she sucked, that's all anyone would remember. Personally, I like to go first and get it over with, which is what my last boyfriend said. Kita was on the horns of a dilemma. Putting Elektra last could throw some of the queens off their game. Well, specifically Scarlett. So she went ahead and did it anyway, but she also put Scarlett right before Elektra, which put Scarlett in a put up or shut up position. Maybe not what she wanted, but a great way to throw a classic follow that in Elektra's face. Needless to say, Scarlett was pleased. She went off on a I wanted to go last tangent, which she must have thought cemented her into that position. Kita blew her off by saying that Elektra had had a quiet word about wanting to go last, and that seemed to be all she needed to make up her mind. Scarlett did that classic thing all queens who didn't get their way do, which is to say, from a professional point of view, that decision doesn't make any sense. Lawrence Chaney! Thank God Ru showed up to check on their progress, and she didn't come alone. She brought along with her the uber glamorous and not near as tanned as she was last time, Raven. First for a visit was Elektra, and once she stopped flirting with Raven, she told Ru that she was going to be dancing in a different way than they'd seen her do so far. What? Like with good makeup and hair? In her defense, Elektra said that she can improve on her makeup and get better costumes, but what she has that sets her apart is the X Factor. Personally, I wish she'd get the Max Factor, because the biggest crime for any queen is to not know how to beat that mug. Kita was next, and once she told Ru that her talent was quick change magic, she instantly regretted it, because Ru told Kita she hates magic. Kita surprised everyone by admitting that she felt guilty winning the last challenge. She asked Raven how she dealt with self-doubt on her season of Drag Race, and Raven said, when you're in a room with queens who are the best in their hometowns, it's easy to second guess yourself. And that's when the self-doubt comes in. So, I guess what Raven was saying is, don't second guess yourself. Done. Scarlett was next and not only revealed that she'd be pole dancing, but she said it would be her first time performing on the pole, even though she's been listed as a pole dancer in articles dating back to 2019. Well, I don't know. Art was next and more or less said she'd be sticking food in her face as her talent. Well, as much as Ru hates magic, she's even less of a fan of watching people put food in their mouths. What fun! Art did ask Raven for some post-Drag Race advice, and hers was, don't read social media comments, which I have a feeling Art has learned already. Seriously. Karen was next, and after she told Ru that her talent was making balloon animals, Ru pointed out that she hasn't won a challenge since episode 1, which I think we can all agree is Ru speak for don't do balloon animals. Ru also asked Karen if she'd ever tried to ditch her Karen from Finance persona and go for a total sex kitten look, which I think is Ru speak for I hate your drag. Either way, it wasn't a good visit for our Miss Karen. Seriously. And then it was Elimination Day, and you could tell the pressure was on because no one was saying a word in that workroom. Well, no one but Art Simone, who kept up a barrage of questions aimed at Karen, especially after Karen admitted that her stress levels were getting a bit high, trying to get ready in such a short time. Maybe it was an attempt to throw Art off her game or something production asked her to do, but Karen asked Art after Raven's advice about social media if she'd ever experienced negativity on social media. I'm not surprised that she has, but receiving death threats is beyond the pale. No one should have to go through that. Her story about death threats from a family member who ended up coming out as trans and subsequently killing themselves was particularly sad to hear. It's a shame that they felt bullying Art was the better way to go than reaching out to her for guidance with her own coming out issues. It's such a waste. You could tell her story touched everyone deeply. How could it not? And on that somber note, it was time for the runway. Ru looked lovely in her layers of lime fantasy, but I wish the neckline had been about 2 or 3 inches lower. It just seemed to be constricting on her in some way. Seriously, I don't know why Zaldi doesn't just run things by me before he shows them to Ru. Just saying. Michelle looked gorgeously gothic in her relaxed smoky eye look, and yes, relaxed smoky eye was my drag queen name in high school. Reese looked lovely, as he always does, in a PK smoking jacket, which was no one's drag queen name, ever. First up, the Down Under talent show extravaganza. Karen was first, and she obviously took Ru's comments to heart because the only way she could have looked sexier would have been to have actually had sex on that stage, which, trust me, is a whole other kind of talent show. I have to say, I loved what Karen did. I just wish she'd done more of it. When she told Ru she would be doing balloon animals, I took that to mean more than one. But no, apparently all she knows how to do is a poodle. Then why did she have so many other balloons standing by? Even the judges were surprised there wasn't more to her act. It all seemed a little abrupt. Personally, I think it would have been funny to see her dressed as she was as a dominatrix to pop some of those balloons in her first couple of attempts to twist them by being too rough before finally creating her toy poodle. I also think it would have been more impressive if she'd been able to make a bigger toy poodle and then ride it off stage. But she didn't ask me. Art was next, and the best thing I can say about her act was her dress. I thought it was just stunning, but as far as her act went, I felt like it was thrown together very last minute. Sticking things including your fist in your mouth is the beginning of an act, but there was no point, no follow-through, just Art making faces for all she was worth. Now there's an act that could have done with being a lot shorter if you ask me. Of course, no one did. Keita Mean was next, and right away I was obsessed by her wig. No offense to Denise and her stunning creations, but that's a wig that's right up my alley, I'm just saying. I have to say that I was impressed with Keita's act, probably because she had one, although that first reveal would have been more impressive if she got to it a lot quicker and didn't spend so long with her back to the audience. But once she got that first quick change out of the way, the other two moved right along, and even though I could sometimes see the other dresses underneath what she was wearing, I was impressed with how smooth her transitions went. Seriously. I hate to admit it, but Scarlett did great. Needless to say, the judges liked it too, although Reese may have gone blind for a minute or two there. Last, and I'm not going to say least, was Electrashock. Her outfit notwithstanding, I think her number would have come off a lot better if she'd opened the show and not followed Scarlett. Also, does this queen not have any nice wigs? At all? Seriously, not to say that what she did wasn't well done, but I think she could have done it better with a nicer wig and outfit. Seriously. And then it was time for the runway. Category is, how's your headpiece? Karen from Finance was first, and I was instantly in love with her pink poodle realness. She looked great. Whoever made this outfit is an absolute star. Clearly, I gave Karen a Fingerdoo. Art surprised the hell out of me with this outfit. It was soft and ethereal and looked amazing on her. That's 2 fabulous outfits from Miss Simone in one show. So, I'm giving her 2 Fingerdoos. She can stick them in her face hole. Next was Kita Mean in her Fembot Warrior Princess outfit. I love this, and she sold the hell out of it, so I gave her a Fingerdoo too. Scarlett's Ode to Vegas Showgirls was another stunner. What can I say? I'm a whore for feathers and rhinestones, which was also the name of my one-woman show in high school. Lastly, we had Electrashock. I liked the swing illusion that her headpiece was giving us, and the fact that that wig seemed sleek and to have been combed. So, I gave her a Fingerdoo too. And then it was time for the judges' critiques. Karen was up first, and clearly everyone loved her runway. The same couldn't be said for her talent. Michelle had only one word for Karen's balloon animal. Why? She looked great and was funny, but she felt it was too short. All Ru wanted to know was whether or not Karen felt sexy. I think she did. Well, right up until Michelle asked why. Seriously. Art Simone was next, and Reese couldn't say enough about how much he loved her runway, but Michelle questioned whether what she did for the talent show qualified as a talent, mostly because she didn't swallow. Kita's talent got read more than her runway did. Michelle pointed out it took her a long time to get to that first quick change, and then read her for the costumes not being that great. Well, they didn't bother me. Ru reiterated that she's not a fan of magic, but couldn't ignore the joy Kita brings to the stage whenever she's on it. Clearly, this week's fave was Scarlett Adams. All the judges just gushed over her runway and her talent. I would assume what she wore on that pole, or more to the point what she didn't wear, had a lot to do with that, just saying. Lastly was Electrashock, and while Michelle loved her dancing and thought she could be in the next Sia video, she just hated the hair and outfit she wore, but thought her runway was the best she'd looked all season, which still came off as a read to me. And because the grand finale is only 1 week away, thank God, Ru asked the queens who they thought should go home. All the queens said Elektra, which wasn't a surprise, although I was a little disappointed that Kita did as well, while Elektra picked Art. Well, that's who I'd pick. She hasn't won anything and was already sent home. Just saying. Back in the Untucked Lounge, the queens asked Elektra how she was feeling. She was surprised that everyone picked her to go home. She thought that at least Kita would have her back. Of course, Art had feelings about Elektra picking her. Well, so did I. I was surprised that no one else did too. I thought that at least Kita or Karen would have picked Art. Seriously. And then they were interrupted by a video message from Australian pop act, the Veronicas, although I'm still trying to understand why. All they seemed to do was rehash everything that had been discussed so far. But they look cute. Back on the main stage, Ru announced that this week's winner was Scarlett Adams and that the 2 queens in the bottom were Electrashock and Kita Mean. Personally, I would have picked Karen from Finance, no offense, but it looked like they wanted to have a Kiwi face-off. Right away, I was gagged when it looked like Elektra was going to walk off the stage, but psych! She quickly turned around and performed the hell out of that song. Because of her shoes, Kita wasn't as mobile as Elektra, so she sold the hell out of the song with her face. She did a great job. No matter what Elektra did, the judges couldn't stop watching Kita, so when the music died, it was no surprise to me that Kita shantaed and Elektra sashayed away, but not before giving Ru one more, "How you doing?" That gets me, I tell you what. I, for one, am sorry to see Elektra go. Not that I thought she was going to win. Her drag was too rough, but I think she deserved to be in the finale more than Art Simone. But then, no one asked me. So, what do you think? Did the right queen go home? Should Karen have been in the bottom? What about Art? Was her runway really good enough to take her through to the finale, or should she have been in the bottom too? And, speaking of the finale, who's your pick to win? I hope it's Kita. I like her the most and see her as being a great ambassador for RuPaul's Drag Race Down Under. She's scandal-free and, although not a pushover, she's not a mean girl for mean girl's sake. All we can do at this point is gird our loins and tune into next week's finale of Drag Race Down Under to see how it all plays out. And then, when you're done, you come on back and you see me so we can compare notes. Now, please don't forget to like this video by giving it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, do it now, why don't you? You'd make my day, I'm so serious. And until next week, miss me! Mwah! Seriously. I thought not putting Karen in the bottom was a little suspect. I don't see why Kita was there over Karen. Although, if Karen had been in the bottom, Elektra might have lip-synced her out. No offense. Personally, I would have loved to have seen Karen and Art in the bottom, but they obviously want Art and Karen in the finale, so lurdy-dur. I just hope Scarlett doesn't win. I just hope Scarlett doesn't win. Can you imagine somebody with a history of doing blackface winning RuPaul's Drag Race? Oh, God. If they're having problems with viewers jumping ship now, that will be the iceberg that'll sink this Titanic.